talk about any trait in any species as long as it's a single gene trait. It's called monogenic. So if it's controlled by one gene, and it's straight up dominant, you have this, recessive, you have that, we can talk about it using this kind of analysis. It's kind of fun at squares. So let's talk about, some imaginary flower which has either red or white flowers, and red is dominant. So red flowers, the gene for red flowers is a big R, is shown as a big R, the allele, and for white it would be a little r. So if you have two heterozygous parents, because remember, flowers reproduce sexually, you have one flower producing eggs, one flower producing sperm. You'll want to write this down on a piece of paper or something. If we have two heterozygous parents, what are their genotypes? Big R, and big R, little r. And if we look at a cross of these two parents, and we look at their likely offspring, what do we get? We've just done this one. Some of you did it a bunch of times. Big R, big R. Big R, little r. Big R, little r. Little r, little r. Do you see how we got those? Okay, so we've got three possible genotypes in their offspring. How many heterozygous or homozygous dominant do we see? 2. Homozygous dominant, 1. How many heterozygous offspring? 2. How many heterozygous recessive? 1. So our genotype for this is, our genotype ratio is 1 to 2 to 1. Anytime you have two heterozygous parents, this is your genotype ratio. So what's the most common genotype? Yeah, heterozygous. You tend to have more heterozygous individuals in a population than you do homozygous. Most of us are a mix of things. It's kind of unusual to have a whole lot of purebreds or purely recessive individuals. So what are the possible phenotypes for this example? How many red flowers would we have in this batch of offspring? 3. These ones, this one would be red flowered, these two would be red flowered. So we have 3. How many white flowers do we have? 1. So if you look around at some trait, and a smaller percentage of the population has a particular version of the trait, would you tend to think that that's probably dominant or recessive?
Yeah.
It's an either or. It's not a...
You restate the question.
Yeah. So if you, okay, here's the example I'll give you. Look around this room. Look at hair color in this room. Now, never mind the fact that humans, some of us fiddle with our hair color. Some of us fiddle harder than others. We have a few fiddlers in here who may or may not wish to reveal their native coloration. But in general, and also realize that human hair color is not a single, brown or blonde. There are a lot of shades in between. But if we look at just darker hair versus lighter hair, what would you guess is dominant in humans looking around this room? Darker hair tends to be dominant over lighter hair. So, and that said, hair color is not a single gene thing. It's multiple genes, and we have multiple shades. Okay, anytime you have two heterozygous parents, you're going to get this 3-to-1 phenotype ratio. About 75% of your offspring are going to show the dominant phenotype. In a population with more than anything heterozygous individuals running around, you tend to have many more individuals who are showing the dominant phenotype. The recessive phenotype tends to be much rarer. It tends to be less common. So what we're going to do, you can take the recall quiz. It'll probably only take you a few minutes. You can probably get it done right now. We've just talked about all these concepts. And then tomorrow we're going to start off talking about an air test question that relates to this stuff.